Going now to tariffs, there was a massive Supreme Court case yesterday where Trump's tariffs actually appeared before the United States Supreme Court for their legality. The Supreme Court will rule on that imminent question. Hundreds of billions of dollars are at stake because of the amount of revenues that have flowed into the federal government's coffers. There is a potential possibility they may actually have to repay all of the tariff revenue back to those companies if they are struck down, and it increasingly looks that way. Here was Trump's immediate reaction to the possibility of them getting struck down. Let's take a listen.
You're saying you're happy with what you came out of it.
If I didn't have tariffs, we would right now, the entire world would be in a depression because, that wasn't a threat against us. That was a threat against the entire world. I did this for the world.
I did it for the world. That's his response. Good luck arguing that before the United States Supreme Court, sir, because they are not looking so favorably on your proposal. We have some of the audio just showing some of the conservative justices expressing a lot of skepticism around this. First, let's start with Justice Gorsuch.
You say that we shouldn't be so concerned in the area of foreign affairs because of the president's inherent powers. That's the gist of it, as I understand it, why we should disregard both major questions and non-delegation. So could Congress delegate to the president the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations as he sees fit, to lay and collect duties as he sees fit?
We don't assert that here. That would be a much harder case now in 1790.
Isn't that the logic of your view, though?
I don't think so, because we're dealing with a statute that was a carefully crafted compromise. It does have all the limitations that I just talked about.
You're saying we shouldn't be concerned with. I want to explain to me how you draw the line, because you say we shouldn't be concerned because this is foreign affairs and the president has inherent authority, and so delegation off the books, more or less.
And again, the phrase that Justice Jackson uses, it just does not apply. At least
I know, but that's where you started off, and now you've retreated from that, as I understand it.
Well, I think we would, as our frontline position, assert the stronger position, but if the court doesn't accept it, then if there is a highly deferential...
Can you give me a reason to accept it, though? That's what I'm struggling and waiting for. What's the reason to accept the notion that Congress can hand off the power to declare war to the president?
Well, we don't contend that. Again, that would
well,
be...
you do. You say it's unreviewable. There's no manageable standard, nothing to be done. And now you're, I think you, tell me if I'm wrong. You backed off that position.
Maybe that's fair to say.
Okay, all right.
That would be,
Thank you.
Not great there for the U.S. Solicitor General. There were a couple of other instances where Justice Kavanaugh also appeared to have some questions there. This time for the opposition, just to give you a bit of a flavor on some of the arguments that are happening. Let's take a listen.
Mr. Katyal referred to common sense several times, and I want to pick up on Justice Barrett's question because your interpretation of the statute, as she pointed out, would allow the president to shut down all trade with every other country in the world or to impose some significant quota on imports from every other country in the world, but would not allow a 1% tariff. And that leaves, in the government's words in its brief, an odd donut hole in the statute. Why would a rational Congress say, yeah, we're going to give the president the power to shut down trade?
So that was the argument that gets to some of the presidential powers. I just think broadly what we're trying to show you is that while there are a couple of justices who appear to perhaps rule on Trump's side, the vast majority were quite skeptical. Let's put the tear sheet up here on the screen from the Wall Street Journal. Supreme Court appears skeptical of Trump's tariffs. The Trump administration's lawyer faced sharp questioning, including from the conservative wing of the court. Lawyers representing the tariff challengers were pressed a little bit here about the limitations that they could impose on core powers. One of the interesting things that kind of flows from this is that they would not strike down the ability to impose tariffs. What they would strike down was this IEEPA authority that Trump used to impose these tariffs. And they said, well, you can do it, but those take a lot longer and you kind of have to show your work. You have to prove through a system that they're taking advantage of you. And the whole reason he used these is because they could go into effect immediately, where those other ones require a lot more box checking and legalities in order to go through, and they can be challenged in court. But the big question is, what about all the money? There's hundreds of billions of dollars sitting in the U.S. Treasury bank account. Who gets that money? Nobody even knows the answer to that question, but that would be devastating to the Trump theory, not only in terms of executive power, but of tariffs, because that's their whole cope is, well, where are you going to use this money to offset, the shutdown, whatever, to pay these farmers? Well, what if these farmers just took a hit and they get no money from the government? That's brutal.
Yeah, well, it also, it's a dagger to the heart of like Trump economics, which, I think a lot of Americans want to see a dagger to the heart of Trump economics. In a certain sense, it may kind of save them because the tariffs are some of the most unpopular thing that Trump has done in the second term. So, I think there's a number of things going on here with the Supreme Court. Number one, a lot of businesses don't like the tariffs, and the court, even the conservative justices, are very pro-business. So this was one that we always thought had a chance of success, even when Trump was riding high. So that's number one. Number two, I think rightly they pointed out, hey, so does that mean that a Democratic administration can declare, climate change emergency and then just do whatever they want? And you can just usurp power from Congress. They really started to grapple with the amount of power that this administration has claimed in the executive. And this was the first time really that we've seen them push back in any area and say, you know what, Congress does have a role here. Like, they do exist. They are supposed to be doing some things as well, not just you guys. But number three, I wonder if these arguments would have gone in such a clearly anti-tariff direction if you hadn't just had this massive midterm reckoning. Trump is now looking more and more like already kind of a lame duck, given the reckoning that you had across the country. Very strong message sent about the unpopularity of his policies, about the unpopularity of his party overall, of the direction of the country. And so this court has been very fearful of crossing Trump. They've been worried about his power. They've been worried about maintaining their own legitimacy. I think that's a big part of the reason why they've done all these shadow docket decisions that have gone in his direction to avoid upsetting the apple cart and having this direct confrontation with him. Now he's looking a little bit less powerful. He's looking a little bit more vulnerable, and that may be playing into some of this as well. These are very political actors. No one should fool themselves otherwise.
Yeah, definitely probably part of it in terms of what they're all looking at. And, this refund question, I just can't get away with this. Go ahead and put C6 up on the screen. This is going to be one of the craziest things if these get struck down. There's a liability of $1 trillion. If they rule that the tariffs are illegal, tariff payments will be considered, quote, wrongfully collected taxes. That tariff will then apply to 150 countries, nearly every product in the United States. That will then reshape the global economy just from the outflows from the U.S. Treasury, not to mention to all of the companies. And, Ryan even said this, is that, if you think those companies aren't going to just take that money and immediately buy back their own stock and not, let's say, like lower prices or any of that, you're also delusional. So the net result would be no money even in the government's coffers, and no investment spur, nothing. And the companies themselves would get a massive windfall in cash. The only people left holding the bag are those who bought goods in the interim, and or if you're a non-stockholder, then you're done. So that seems to be the most likely scenario. By the way, I just one thing to mention. There is an argument from the Solicitor General that if they do get struck down, it should only be from when the case was brought, and specifically by the plaintiffs, which is the Oregon, like a few others, that those goods, and it shouldn't broadly apply because of unfeasibility. We'll see. Pretty unfair, in my opinion, if you were forced to pay those tariffs, but I don't know.
Here's the other thing. Is like, you can go to Congress. You've got Republican House majority, you got Republican Senate majority, but there's a reason why Congress has not fought back. They don't want to have to take this vote, because most of them actually oppose the tariff program, but they don't want to get crosswise with Trump. So as with many things, they're just happy to say, you do it. We don't want to have to say anything about it. We don't want really anything to do with it. So, in theory, with Republican control and a Republican president, he could pass whatever tariff regime he wants through Congress. But he likes the ability to, tweet out, they're on, they're off, they're this level, they're that level, et cetera. He likes having that power. And also, by the way, somebody likes insider trading off of that information as well, which we've seen, multiple times, like individuals making millions and millions of dollars pre-running whatever Trump is about to announce. So, he's not interested in having actually some sort of coherent program that he has to pass through Congress. And Congress is not interested in having their hands. The Republicans in Congress are not interested in having their hands on it either. So that's why if this does get struck down, it really will be be a bit of a death knell for what he can do on tariffs, unless he just decides to ignore them, which, you know, he's doing on food stamps. So that is always a possibility.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.